Karen Collins, and I am the director of Beep.
My name is Matt Charlton. I'm the director of photography and the camera operator for Beep.
Well, I've been writing and researching game audio for nearly 15 years. My main job is an academic, so I research and write papers and books about my subject, which happens to be game audio. About a year ago, I sort of thought, you know, some people are starting to get a little old, and I was doing some research into old film music, which a lot of the old film history has been lost. Like there's a few scores hanging around, but the old pianists, for instance, were the Traps people. We don't have any record of what they did and why, and I thought, you know what, if we just leave this too long, we're gonna lose that record for game audio as well. So it's time somebody goes out there, and I started talking to a bunch of friends, and I said, you know, somebody needs to go and record this stuff, and I thought, well, I'll make it a book. So initially I thought, this is a book project, I'll go out there. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to go and interview all of these people, I might as well bring a camera along because, hey, why not? So I've done a bunch of independent films and stuff just kind of for fun, but I thought, you know, I talked to a bunch of people and friends of friends, and suddenly it became this massive documentary from out of nowhere that I wasn't really initially expecting to take on such a huge project. I mean, we're interviewing about 100 different historical figures throughout game history. We've got North America, we're going to England in a few weeks, and then we'll be in Japan in May as well. So we're, you know, it's kind of a big global history of game audio, interviewing as many people as we can. It's been absolutely fantastic. We've been doing a great job. I've been sort of editing the footage as we go, so we've captured a lot of really great interviews so far, so everything is going really great.
It's a lot of interviews, and in some cases we need interpreters with us, and a lot of it can be run and gun, so being ready to shoot when you've got the material to cover is important. Also, just thinking about the 100 people that we're interviewing and that we've got a 90-minute film. So that's pretty daunting. So I try not to think too much about the big picture at the moment. But you know, and there's so many different ways we can tell the story too. So part of it is figuring out what story are we trying to tell and who the target market is, and is it something that we can bring in people from outside the gaming industry to say, hey, look at us, look at what's going on here.
Because primarily our documentary is about a history of game audio, there aren't a whole lot of historical figures here, but our primary reason for being here is to get what we call B-roll in film, is to get shots of celebrating the culture around game audio. And of course there's chip musicians and all kinds of people making music out of game technology, game sounds. So there's a whole cultural aspect that I think will come in towards the end of the film as far as where game audio is going. But we're also doing a bunch of interviews here, as well as having fun. We're catching some of the gigs, just kind of absorbing the whole culture of it. I mean, you know, as an academic and as somebody getting on in years compared to a lot of the younger people into game music these days, it's been an interesting experience to come here. I mean, I go to all of the game developer conferences, and I see a lot of people in the industry all the time, regularly talk to them, but I've never really been involved in the fan culture. It's been great to come and meet so many people who are so excited about game music. Yeah, it was the first interview that I've done going through an interpreter, so it was a little bit nerve-wracking that, you know, the very first interpreter interview that we're doing is with Nobuo Uematsu. I mean, of all the people, so I was a bit stressed out on that interview. But I mean, it was a great gig, and so it was super exciting to get in and see the concert. And we talked to Arnie Roth, who is the conductor as well. So we got a great interview with him about you know, orchestration, about the decision-making process around what songs do they play in different countries, in different concerts, how do they frame the music differently outside the game for the audience, and so on. So yeah, it was great fun. So what we've been doing so far is taking the interviews, and I am transcribing them, typing them out, and those will end up in the book, the full, with the question and the response. And then I'm taking the questions out of the interviews and editing the webisodes down to something manageable for, you know, a 15, 20 minute, 30-minute video. As I'm doing that, as I'm editing the webisodes themselves, I'm sort of thinking about, okay, well, I really like this section here. I'm putting that aside as something that may go into the film, or there's stuff that you can definitely say, well, that's definitely something for the book that, you know, that's getting a little bit too nerdy. There's different markets that we're aiming for, I guess, with each of these, and the people that will read a book are maybe different people than the people that would watch a webisode, because a lot of people that are maybe new to game audio and they're just sort of curious might go and watch a 15-minute video, whereas they're not going to buy and read a whole book. So there's a kind of multiple angles that we're taking, and the fact that we're doing it in a film and webisodes in a book means that we can really sort of hit different markets and use all of this content in multiple ways. So one of the things that happened after the Kickstarter was the Canadian dollar tanked, because the Canadian dollar is so closely tied to oil that it lost about 20% of its value in just a few months. So we did sort of have this budget based on our Kickstarter budget, and then as we've been spending money, you're sort of going, you know, things are getting a lot more expensive because a lot of our expenses are outside of Canada. So one of the things that we're trying to do is to raise a little bit of extra money through the webisodes. So we're giving people the option of sponsoring a webisode, and it could be something as little as $100 up to $500. And basically you can have something as simple as, you know, this episode is brought to you by Joe's Garage, or whatever. You know, it doesn't have to even be related to game audio. Obviously, ideally, we would have something related to audio or music or games, or something related to the content. But you know, we're really happy just to have anybody who wants to step up and say, yeah, you know, I'm willing to put my brand on that. So either you can have a voiceover just saying, you know, brought to you by Joe, or you could have a visual image of your company logo, or you can actually put up a whole advertisement if that's what you want, like a 30-second ad. For me, it kind of depends if I'm listening to it inside the game, or if I'm listening to it in my car or somewhere outside of the game. Outside of the game, I like the Silent Hill stuff. I work as a sound designer as well, so I like noises, I like interesting sound effects. So something like Silent Hill, where they're bringing in a lot of sound effects into the music, is something that I would listen to outside of the game. But then inside the game, what works really well in a game, I mean, I'm a huge Zelda fan, so I would have to say the Zelda soundtracks. Those are, you know, one of the soundtracks that I would never turn off while I'm playing the game.
Since we started this documentary, I've been telling everybody I'm not a gamer, and then I go on to tell a story about me playing a video game, and I've realized at MAGFest I'm actually a closet gamer, and I'm just coming out now. I don't have a lot of experience playing games. I mean, I started off on, you know, the trash 80s and the Apple II Plus, playing Olympic decathlon like this, and the simple 8-bit sound cards. And then things sort of progress, you know, with the Ataris and the Commodore 64s and, you know, Pac-Man and Tetris and that sort of thing. And lately the games that I've been getting into are things like Borderlands and BioShock and Half-Life. And what I discovered was not being an avid gamer, as in somebody who you know, plays them all the time, but just sort of dabbles in them. The problem is when I dabble, I get into the game, like Half-Life. The first time I played Half-Life, I started playing at 9 o'clock at night, and then I start to blink and look out the window, and the sun is up and the birds are chirping, and it's 10 hours later. And I'm wearing headphones and I'm looking at a 27-inch screen, and I realize that the audio is what's keeping you in the game. So because it's unlike a movie where it's a static soundtrack where you know what's happening in 2 seconds or 5 seconds and 2 minutes down the road, and you can score for that. In a video game, you need the sound to be dynamic, so that if you're going left down a dark hallway or outside into a field, or if you're going to spend 10 minutes looking for treasures, then all of that sound needs to keep you engaged in what you're doing. And so those limited games that I've played, the soundtrack has done that. And you know, it took me a while to catch on to, you know, the sound that builds up to when the baddies come and the bosses and things, and I'm thinking, oh, that's really neat music, and then I of course get slaughtered. So a bit of a slow learner in the whole gameplay thing, but it really is impressive to see how important sound is. And as a filmmaker myself, I always say that 70% of the picture is the sound. So people will forgive a crappy shot, but they will not forgive bad audio. And that's been my experience. So I try to put a lot of emphasis on the quality of everything, you know, whether it's a promotional video for a company or a music video, the sound has to be really, really good for me, and I'm really fussy about fan noising, people talking in the hallway, or door clicks, or whatever it is, because it's distracting, and it breaks the engagement of the viewer, whether you're playing a video game or whether you're watching a movie. So it's really interesting to see that industry, and now that I'm working on this project and learning so much about what's going on, stuff that we take for granted as end users and consumers of this, it's really, it's pretty mind-blowing. And the fact that the video game industry is exploding and growing larger than the film industry is also pretty impressive. When I saw the Distant Worlds concert series, I see a lot of classical music and operas, and for me it was kind of interesting to be in an audience, a sold-out show, watching a classical style concert with over 100 musicians on stage, playing nothing but music from Final Fantasy, to a bunch of 20 to 40-year-old rabid fans, cheering and screaming at each theme because they recognize the characters. And so that was really impressive. Also, I think it was a neat way to get a new generation, a younger generation, interested in classical style music. So to pick a soundtrack, I don't have enough experience in it, but I am very aware of good sound when I do play those games. Initially,
I sort of had this impression that my focus is on the creative challenges that are involved because of the technology and so on, particularly historically, less so now. But one of the things that keeps coming up with everybody we talk to is that sound is really the ugly stepsister, or the poor cousin, or the bastard child of the game audio world. That people aren't really interested in investing in sound in the way that they are investing in the visuals. Because it's not something you could see on the box. Historically, when you would buy a game, you'd buy it because of the box. So you can't really put sound on the box, and nobody throughout history has really respected sound the way that it should be respected. So I think this is a great opportunity to show people how important sound is in games. Play a bunch of your games with the sound turned off and see what the experience is, or put the wrong music in a game and see what happens, because it completely changes the experience. It's a matter of education, but it's also a matter of just experience, that when you hear really bad sound, then you appreciate how important good sound is. So I would encourage everybody to go out there and play games with bad sound. Just experience what sound means in your game to you, because it really is so important to the game.